Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in into SEACON 2020, where I'm very happy and honored to share my story with you guys about leadership. What I have seen and learned, it's a very personal story. So I'm more than happy to talk with you guys later on about your thoughts. Yeah, what have you experienced? And I really hope you find that interesting. So I think we all can agree that COVID-19, is an unexpected event of an enormous scale, right? That has disrupted our businesses, but also our private lives and situation, right? Many of us, let's say, felt that they lost control. They didn't really know what is happening and how to respond to this. I think we all learned new things regarding what is a pandemic, how is the virus spreading, and we all needed to take action, right? I think very often here, especially at SEACON, we talk about business agility, how important it is, and I think whatever we had discussed in the past, we could really build on this, right? So we define business agility as a capability to respond to new incoming market signals, which we clearly saw, right? So in our sense, dealership had to be closed, right? Customers, let's say, were dialing in, wanted to understand how we can financially help them. And it was definitely a very challenging time for all of us. And looking at, let's say, the widespread of the virus, I think the hard truth is that uncertainty will definitely stay for us a while, more than we might like to see it. But I also see it as a kind of a positive chance for us, really, to now use the opportunity to renew our company, to come out stronger. On the other side out of this pandemic. And many people ask me, hi, Christian, how can you deal with that? What is actually, let's say, to be done? And I very often said, well, there isn't, unfortunately, that one golden answer to all the challenges, right? You need to get continuity management right. You need to know what your vision is, what your CX strategy is, and so on and so on. But there is always one thing that stands out for me, and this is what I would like to talk about. It is really about the importance of leadership and behavior, because for me, it always, let's say, starts with the people who are in charge, who are in power, right? Who have the power to role model the right behavior first. And this is what I would really like to talk with you about. So my personal view is that given the uncertainty, right, also what we have always said, technology is, let's say, changing at a near exponential rate. We need to prepare definitely for all futures, right? We need to, and this is what we have said within our company, and I have given out as a slogan, we need to build agility into everything we do, right? That starts within IT when we talk about the architecture landscape, which is absolutely critical in these days to remain successful, to make the move into a really, let's say, digital company, right? Where you talk about data, you talk about APIs, integration, etc. But it's also about how you work, right? How do you talk to your staff? How do you keep them motivated, right? How do you take care of their well-being, of their mental health? Yeah, we very often talk about physical exercise, but what about mental training, mental exercise, right? How can you, as a leader, go first, take the risk, explain what you are doing, and even in these uncertain times, see this as, let's say, a chance for you, right, to make sure you really pull together as a team, that you build the right culture, right? That last year I have talked about the importance of culture, and that's really something when you constantly work on as a leader, you will see that in these days, many things, although they are still challenging, are a lot easier to be implemented. So why is leadership more important than ever? So before we maybe go into that and it gets clear, my simple view is of how I explain leadership is, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for the people who are responsible for the result. So my people, right, they are daily on the phone talking to customers. They are doing software coding. They are doing testing. They are adding and creating value every day to that company and to our customers. So it's my job, to make them successful, to create the environment in which they can flourish, in which they are allowed to experiment, right? And in which I gave them, let's say, the direction and the certainty and safety they need to do, let's say, a very good job. And as said, especially in these days where the uncertainty is high, where you get questions from your staff, will I be furloughed, right? Can I afford my rent? I also have challenges at home. How you can help me? I think more than ever, we as the leaders need to step up and need to make the first step. So what I have done within VWFS UK IT is to write a little framework that's called Leadership in Crisis, where we said, let's understand the different phases that we are going through. First and foremost, we have to respond to the crisis, right? The second phase is recovery. And now, although we are in the second lockdown, at the time of that conference, we already have to think about how do we want to renew our company. And there are three things that are important for me. We as leaders need to show. It's all about, I think, decisiveness, right? Accepting that, let's say, the decisions that we made today are maybe tomorrow different ones, right? And that has nothing to do with the fact that we don't know in which direction do we want to go, but especially in the beginning of the crisis, right, when there was a lot of unknowns and also we as leaders didn't have the answer to all of this question, which we still have today, which we still not have today. This decisiveness was really key. And we have seen that our colleagues have really excelled. We delivered on a quarterly basis more software than ever during the peak of the first lockdown. And I think that is quite fascinating if you take a step back and think about, because many people thought, oh, there would be a drop if people have to work from home. Actually, we have seen that in the peak of the first crisis, when everyone worked at home, we have delivered more than ever before. So obviously, leadership, culture, the environment that you create so that people can flourish and respond to the new situation and the new challenges are absolutely key. The second thing we talked about is simple and consistent communication. So again, to be very, let's say, practical with you, we as a leadership team have done a bi-weekly call in the beginning. It now shifted to weekly calls where whole of IT, let's say, jumps on an MS Teams call. They either walk because they need to make a few steps during the day. They need to get out of their houses and homes. I have always been on the spot. People were allowed to ask any question they want, also in an anonymous format. We consciously decided for that, and that's something I would really like to think about. The workforce is diverse, right? So you have extroverted people, you have introverted people, and how do you really get in a remote world where you don't see people anymore? How do you still get the best out of these people? So you need to think about whatever you come up with, making sure that you address all the different characters that you have in your workforce. And that's sometimes a bit difficult because when you respond to an anonymous question, you might need more context, etc., etc. But it has always been a good reflection for me as a leader. What is it that my colleagues need? What is concerning them? How do I need to respond to them? And very often we have done follow-up sessions, right? A few colleagues were also brave enough afterwards to drop me a direct email, and then I had a chat with them. So that has really helped, that we as a team bounded together, that the team always knew, okay, there is someone that we can always, let's say, talk to. Yeah, people have also recognized they are not alone in their challenges, right? We very often talked about it. We created the platform for them. And the third thing is looking after each other, right? So this applies not only for leaders, yeah, who need to act with empathy. I recently heard a very good podcast where someone is saying, right, only because you follow a recipe or reading a lot of books about leadership, that doesn't make you a good leader. You need to have that natural intrinsic motivation, right, to say, I really care about people. I put them first, yeah, even before my own, let's say, interest and well-being. And this is, I think, what is actually needed in the current phase. So again, leadership, from my perspective, as I said, is first and foremost a service to the people, right? I think Simon Sinek talks about it. It's not an authority topic, right? Yeah, because, and I shared that with my colleagues as well. Whenever I'm currently employed to the UK, there will the point in time come when I go back to my home country, and for me, it's a good measurement of, let's say, my time here in the UK and how I have acted as a leader when I come back and people still talk to me, right? But next time, not because they have to, because they want to. So for me, it's really getting that message across. It is a service first and foremost, because your people are responsible for the daily results, not you. That, I think, is something we all need to understand and need to get right. So talking about leadership, again, 3 things. Yeah, we talked about leadership is about employees, and that's absolutely right. No one, I think, is really doubting this. But for me, there are also 2 other elements, and it's about leadership is also about the company that you are responsible for, and you have to take care of yourself, right? It's definitely one of the key learnings through that crisis. Also, leaders might struggle. So let's not forget that, right? Also, leaders need help. They need a bit of a break. So what we are doing is now on a monthly basis, I am meeting all my line managers virtually, where they can ask me anything, where we can share positive stories. We even decided last week to come up with a kind of, let's say, randomized meetings. So what does it mean? Normally, when you are in the office, when you leave a meeting room, right, you walk the floors and you meet someone, anyone, and you will simply stop, maybe pause a minute or two, say hello, how are you? People are missing this, right? So what we are now doing is we have thrown all our names into a machine that is randomly matching 2 colleagues, and we've put in our diary, I don't know, a 20 minutes, let's say, meeting every week, where the randomized, let's say, names that are coming out of that machine, where people simply have a talk. And I said, talk about whatever you want. Talk about business, talk about your personal challenges. It's your time. Take the time for you. Yeah, take yourself out of the daily rush and the pressure, and make sure that you as leaders can also unload your challenges, unload the pressure that you have. Yeah, I know that we are expecting a lot from leaders, as we talked about here, but let's also fairly recognize that leaders also need space for themselves. So this is a message which is also very important for me to get across. Yeah. And then, of course, we talk about the company, right? We all want to stay relevant. Yeah, we all want to come out, in best case, stronger at the other side of this. But I think the truth is that COVID is a huge acceleration of digitalization, right? It is, I heard even this morning someone saying, we need to accept a kind of creative disruption in the one or the other industry. And that definitely needs to the fact that we as leaders need to explain that, right? We need to be open and transparent. Where is our business? And we need to work with our workforce on what the future holds for us. So a very concrete example, I'm meeting my colleagues every 6 weeks, where we talk about an initiative called Strategic Workforce Planning, where we honestly look at ourselves, and with the right culture already in place, and it's fair to say we have worked on this the last 2 years, we're asking them, which roles and capabilities do we need in the future? What do we need to rescale? to reinvent, do more, or renew, or is there maybe a role that we don't need anymore in the future, right? Or we need to lower the number of roles that we have for the one or the other specific topic. And here, really, and that is what I mentioned in the beginning, a positive, supportive culture comes into play, right? Because you have situations, and I'm sure you all have seen this, right, where you have someone at home has 4 kids or whatever, and then someone who is maybe on his own, and then you come to the question whom to furlough because you don't have enough for two, let's say for 2 colleagues, and then sometimes you have the situation that you as leaders, you can't really make that decision. But again, if you then act with empathy, if you explain what does it mean, how can everyone contribute to the situation, how everyone can play a part, right? I have actually seen, and I would like to use the opportunity here to say thank you to my team, to all of them in IT. You all have excelled this. The way you have supported each other made my life as a leader, let's say, very, very easy. And that hopefully goes back to that we have modeled the right behavior before. And with, let's say, the instrument of cultural hacks, and I will come to that later. I think we have formed the right behavior, and with that we are able to, let's say, respond to the right things. So, but to give you a bit of more of a practical insights, what leadership can do and what it also means, we brought in right from the beginning the idea of cross-functional teams, right, where we put decision-making to the lowest possible level. Yeah, where we move from projects to product, where we focus on thinking big, start small, and culture. So we have started 2 years ago with 3 teams. Our last PI planning event took place 4 weeks ago, and we now scaled to 20 teams already across the whole company, where we are sitting together and asking our colleagues to show us what do you think, based on the data that we have, brings the biggest value to our company. So clearly also here, you need to make sure that you really create the environment where people could come up with their ideas, right, where they can, let's say, express concerns, where they also challenge you as leaders, right? And I'm more than happy to accept that, to be challenged. I have adjusted some of my views definitely based on their feedback, and I'm absolutely grateful about this. Because what we as leaders also should admit, we don't know everything. I always taught my guys, if I'm the most intelligent colleague here in the room, then we definitely have a problem. Normally that makes them smile. So creating that psychological safety, that environment for them is absolutely true, and I'm more than happy, let's say, to talk you through what else we have done. It's fair to say, by far, have we not got everything right? Yeah, the number of customers that called us right in the beginning and still calling in to ask for help is something in terms of load that is a challenge for us. But again, how we have responded as a company, how we pulled together, how we as leaders also stood up, that has actually made me very, very, let's say, proud. So how can you create as a leader that environment, right? We are actually using something that is called cultural hacks, right? I'll come to that in a minute, but let me give you a few examples, right? And everything from my perspective as a leader starts with storytelling. You need to explain the why. And I've said to my colleagues, we're not playing the big fish against the small fish anymore. It's against the big fish, against the fast fish. So we need to learn to experiment more, to be more brave, to continuously develop, to bring out, let's say, the right features and test it with our colleagues in order to stay relevant and do the right thing. So I brought my colleagues together with many startups, right, that they could learn, that they got a different perspective, right? I forced them to take time off to learn, yeah. We allowed experimentation. Concrete example, we created a role that is called Tech Scout, yeah, and we equipped that person to do 10 experiments. And I allowed him there is only one rule. I said, you are not allowed to ask me what you want to do, right? So again, it's giving that freedom, pushing responsibility down, not saying you push things away, but actively using all the strengths and the diversity that you have in your workforce, right? I think we all have a lot of good people, but make sure they are sitting on the right roles, and that they have the psychological safety in order to do certain things. And we have done millions of other things. So as I said, from shared objectives, right, where we cascaded them down to each and every employee, so everyone knows who is to what he or she is contributing to, right? We have done other experiments, where, for example, we played this a day in the life of a CIO, right, where a very young colleague took over my job for a day, so that he could also share, let's say, what he has seen, right? To better understand also my challenges, why I sometimes have to balance between employees, company, and my own well-being, and so on and so on. So this is, I think, another key aspect in terms of leadership that is absolutely important. Don't talk any corporate language. We all are humans, especially in these days, right? People want certainty. People want clarity. People want simple and consistent messages. Check in with them daily, right? So what we also have done is the idea of a walk and talk meeting. I had a day at the beginning of the crisis, I unfortunately have to admit, where I recognized at 4 p.m. in the afternoon that I've only done 350 steps, which is, honestly speaking, a catastrophe, because you have back-to-back meetings. And not like in the office, right? You can't leave a room anymore and can switch off a bit by walking into the other room, So all of this we had to learn. So, for example, we said meetings don't go longer than 45 minutes or 25 minutes, right? We have been approachable throughout the whole time. People could always, let's say, contact us, right? I have a lot of one-to-ones with all my employees. So if you look at my diary, I'm trying to meet 2, 3, 4 people that I'm normally not talking to on all levels, just to check in with them. How are they? What's important for them? What is their concern? What is it that they need to know in order to come with a better feeling, let's say, to work, etc., etc. So it's very often that we are guessing too much, right? So it's more about asking questions, listening, and converting that into actions and follow them up, right? Go back to them. And it's absolutely okay as a leader if you can't solve all the problems, but let the colleagues know where you are. I'm taking care. I might not be able to solve all your problems, but if you flag it is important, I'll make sure that we get an answer, we get data. You might not always like the answer, right? Because there is a bigger picture that is important, or something else that prevents us from implementing certain things. But again, it's not about, let's say, being someone who knows everything better at the top of the chain, where you have a closed room working style or whatever. It's really working with the colleagues, in order to get that right. So in terms of psychological safety, we have done a lot of other stuff like fudge up nights. I talked last year about this. One thing that definitely was a big topic, was a big discussion point during the last 8-9 months was, of course, diversity and inclusion. I'm sure you all have heard about the Black Lives Matters movement, and this was also, for me personally, if I reflect on the year, one of the most important things where I'm still trying to put a lot of energy into, right? Very often we are making the mistake and always waiting until something awful is happening on that planet, and then we are saying, oh, no, my goodness, now we need to do anything. So again, also a good reminder for me to actively promote diversity and inclusion on a day-to-day basis, right? So, for example, we came up with a very transparent, let's say, D&I report. We have formed a working group that looks at our recruitment process. We have done 2 sessions where we had more than 130 people joining, sharing very personal stories that were really touching and also made me think a lot, in which, easy situation. I'm, as a middle-aged white man, I am very often in. Again, here I can only say I'm very thankful for how the colleagues have opened our eyes. And again, my clear commitment that we keep that, let's say, on a level where the topic belongs to. So we are now doing monthly share and learn sessions, right? We have done similar things with mental health, where we, let's say, talked about with our colleagues what is actually allowed. And it is absolutely allowed in the real world, right? To ask for a break during a meeting, right? Yeah, you don't need to sit 8 hours in front of your screen, right? You can do walk and talk meetings. I'm doing that twice a day. I'm encouraging actively my colleagues to make sure that you do at least 5,000 steps a day, right? I mean, if according to the World Health Organization, you need to make 10,000 steps, but let's try to bring people there, right? Think big, start small. Yeah, make sure that people developing a new rhythm in the morning, in the evening, how you switch off, how do you make sure that you don't have a blurred line between life and work when you are still sitting in your whole room. And this is where we as leaders need to take responsibility, right? Because our colleagues, we have very often conditioned them not to think, to come into the office. And I think people also learned that going into the office was a very nice structure of their day, and getting out of the house and so on. But all this is clearly blurred now and is not working anymore. Hence, I see it as my responsibility to help the colleagues to go through this, come up with recommendations. I'm reading a lot of books. I'm speaking at conferences. I would be happy to get your feedback. What has worked for you so that I can bring that into my organization? And as I said, as a leader, you need to go first. You need to start these experiments, try to create a ripple effect, and hopefully what we call these cultural hacks will really help you. It's something that Gartner promotes. So a cultural hack is something that is low effort, below 2 days. In best case, it's highly emotional because people change for emotional reason, and it's absolutely visible. So as said, switching meeting from 60 minutes to 45 minutes, right? A walk and talk meeting, right? Where you both are on the phone and walk around the lake or whatever, right? There are so many fantastic ideas. I shared a couple of them also last year, right? Where you talk about the anonymous meeting minute taker. So you go through a meeting, you make sure everyone stays tuned in, participating. And only at the end, you, let's say, define who takes the meeting minutes. You will see it drives absolutely the right behavior, which is what we want to see in order to deliver the right outcomes and to stay relevant as a company. So that brings me then nearly to the end of my session. And as I said, leadership is for me first and foremost a service to employees, but make sure you have enough, let's say, time for yourself, right? That you balance the things. And I would really like to encourage you, share your stories with us, right? What has worked for you, what hasn't worked. Yeah, sometimes it's also good if you talk about the things that hasn't worked so that no one else fall into that, let's say, pitfall. It's something that sharing and open community, and that is, I think, what SEACON is about, right? That we all stick together, that we all learn. Of course, sometimes we are working in the same industry and we have rules and, let's say, principles to follow. Us absolutely okay, but we are also humans, right? And I think what we learned in that crisis, no one needs to go alone through this. So again, I would really like to encourage you, share your story with us, contact us, and I'm more than happy to set up other sessions where we go through details. So that brings me right to the end of the session. I would like to say thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you for hopefully coming back with your thoughts and ideas. Thank you, Barry, for organizing another fantastic event in these unprecedented and challenging times. But what I said earlier, I think, sticking to that idea, right, that we all help each other is a fantastic idea more than ever. I really hope you all found that insightful and exciting. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hear all from you. Stay safe and talk soon. Thank you very much.